terrifying. I'm so scared. Like, hello. It's been a while since we last did this. It's been a while since we've seen each other, but I am still here. I've been a little bit too busy to sit down and talk about the books I have been reading, but I have been reading them, including Wheel of Time. So here I am with the next installment in my little check-in series throughout the series. And today we're going to talk about book number 4, The Shadow Rising, which this video probably won't be the best. I'm going to be completely real with you. I finished this probably close to a month ago, which I understand is probably a very similar situation to how I started last month's video, and again, I can only apologise. It's just been pretty hectic. I've had a lot going on, but I've been itching to read book number 5, but didn't want to start that without first checking in with book number 4, just because I've been making a point of doing these videos with each book I read, and I know this one is a fan favourite, so I wanted to talk about it. But again, similarly to last month, this won't be necessarily a review. It'll more be just a discussion of everything that happened. I do have like kind of a summary in front of me to follow because I'm very disorganised. And yeah, I just like, for me, these videos are fun for me to look back on for when I want to know what happened in each book, how I felt with each book, and not necessarily needing to be a massive extensive review. And I hope you feel the same, and I hope you're okay with that. As I said, we're here today to talk about book number 4, The Shadow Rising. And the reason why I make such a point about this being a fan favourite is because it's one I see talked about a lot, and it's one whose name I see cropping up over and over again even before I started the series myself. And a couple of weeks ago I did a little bit of a poll on my Twitter, just asking people very informally just to pick out what their favourites were, if they'd read them, or if, like me, they're partway through, what's their favourite so far. Wasn't a very scientific poll, but I had fun doing it. And I left that open for about a week, I think, and then I collated all my data. I'll put the graph up here. Very interesting. There's a definite trend in some of them. I was kind of tallying them off as I was counting them up, and just The Shadow Rising just kept popping up. And I haven't really had a chance to ask people specifically why this one is their favourite, but I would be interested to know, and I feel like a lot of the people in my comments of the last videos I've made have also cited The Shadow Rising as one of their favourites. So if that is you, I'd be very curious to know what it is about this book that makes it so special to you. I think for a lot of people it seems to be where everything kind of opens up into the bigger series. Whereas the first 3, for me, they were quite open, but obviously it's a 15-book series, and this is where we kind of start that longer journey, I think, rather than the first 3, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I've heard people say that it was meant to be a trilogy, and this was where it kind of got extended, but I could be wrong with that. But I think that is where a lot of people have started to cite this as their favourite. This graph was very interesting for me to kind of look at, and as I said, Shadow Rising very much trended as the favourite. But what I also found quite interesting was the kind of distribution of answers, and how you can kind of visually see in the graph where people start talking about the slog, which obviously I haven't got to yet. And I can neither confirm nor deny that this slog is indeed a slog. But I thought it was really interesting that you can visually see that in terms of when you just ask people what their favourite is. You know, you see the same ones popping up over and over again, and those ones, you can just see the dip. After, I haven't got the graph in front of me, but after Lord of Chaos, I believe, it just kind of dips for a while. I think there was only one book that did not have a single person say by name this book, and I think it was Path of Daggers, which, you know, doesn't get me too excited for that book, but I'm interested to see how that era of the series will go for me. Also, like I say, it wasn't particularly scientific. As a scientist, I probably should have been more scientific, but I wasn't, so alas, here we are. But, like, for example, it was kind of difficult to mark off which ones had been answered, because the top reply to my tweet was a passage. Somebody shared a passage from Life of Dreams. I didn't read it because, spoilers, I'll be honest, I was a little, if that was you, I'm sorry, but I was a little bit annoyed because I very, very nearly opened it without realising what it was, because I just saw a picture and I was like, oh, I'll click, and luckily I clicked off in time. But it was a passage from Life of Dreams to which everybody replied saying, this was where I cried, this was what broke me, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it seemed like a lot of people agreed, but they didn't say that was their favourite. So Life of Dreams might be a little bit underrepresented in that graph. But it's fine, whatever, we can see the pattern. But just let this kind of serve as a reminder, please, if you can help it, try not to post spoilers for future books in my comments, and just generally when, just be a bit more mindful, because I know it's not malicious, but sometimes people don't necessarily think about if they're spoiling things. So just, you know, try and be a little careful. So, The Shadow Rising, my opinions. I enjoyed this book. This is a chunky book. I think it's about 1,000 pages, give or take, which is venturing into Stormlight Archive territory, which I'm not mad about. As we all know, but you should know, these are my children. I love these books with every fibre of my being. And while they are all very long, I think Rhythm of War is like something insane, like 1,500 pages. You don't feel it, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of wasted pages or wasted time. Every page kind of feels like it should be there, which is very important in a book that length, to keep you going, because it is the length of like 3 or 4 books. I felt a similar way with Shadow Rising. I didn't find myself kind of slogging through it. I didn't have any trouble. I didn't feel bored at any time. It did take me a while to read, but that's just honestly mostly just a case of finding the time to read. But yeah, I didn't have any trouble getting through it. I thought it was really enjoyable. I liked how, like I said, it did kind of open it up. Everyone kind of splits off into little groups, which I think we're going to get a lot more of going forward, is kind of different plot lines in different groups of people. And I quite like that these groups, we get to see different dynamics within each group, since obviously people act different around different people, and just seeing those changes in dynamic and personality is a lot of fun. And it opens up the world a lot because everyone is in different places. You get to learn about a lot of different locations, cultures, people, and it's quite enjoyable and switches things up quite a lot. So I did enjoy it. However, it wasn't my favourite so far, which is controversial, clearly, according to my poll. But I did very, very much enjoy it. And something I do need to note is, like I said earlier on, I read a lot slower than I used to, because I don't have the time to read, 4 books a week like like I was back last year or towards the start of this year. But I'm kind of struggling at the moment, since that is quite a new thing for me, is reading a bit slower, is I find it quite difficult when I get to the end of the book with how to rate it. So something similar happened to me with Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff, which I read a few weeks ago, and it was probably top 3 of my anticipated releases for this year. I was very excited for it. But it took me probably nearly 2 weeks to read, which is quite unusual for me. And I just got to the end and I was like, because I was reading it kind of little bit by little bit, I find it hard to be like, okay, how did I feel throughout the whole thing? I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, or if anyone's gone through anything similar, but I am kind of coming to terms with that right now. So that's just my little disclaimer. But it wasn't my favourite. So far, I think my favourite is either book 2 or 3. I really liked The Dragon Reborn a lot. I thought it did some very interesting and unique things with the characters. Like I mentioned in my last video, if you haven't seen it, go watch. How Rand was portrayed in book 3 was very different to how I expected the plot to go, and I thought that was really fun. And book 2 I really liked because, again, it was a similar thing to The Shadow Rising, where that's where things started to open up a little bit more, and we got to see different things, see different places, and yeah, like you've kind of got through a large chunk of setup, and I really, really enjoyed that one. With The Shadow Rising, there's not really anything in particular that I didn't like about it, but there wasn't really too much that I was like, that was that standout for me either, in terms of like specific moments, I don't think. If I went back through and I thought hard enough about it, I'm sure there are, but just immediately after finishing, I was kind of like, I wouldn't say I was confused by the hype, but a little bit, I guess, because it just felt like another Wheel of Time book. It didn't necessarily feel too special, and I know that's probably quite controversial, but I am going to rate this like 4 stars, so I did very, very, very much enjoy it. Please don't think otherwise. I'm just, by what everyone says, I was expecting a little bit more, but I did really enjoy it. So, if I did have to pick one thing that kind of put me off a little bit from the beginning, was it was kind of jarring how sort of differently Rand was portrayed in this book. As I just mentioned, one of my favourite things in The Dragon Reborn was how Rand became this almost, what's the word I'm looking for, ominous figure, sort of in the background, which, considering, you know, you read the first 2 books, or even just the first book, Rand very much seems like the hero protagonist. So to go from that to book 3, where he's just kind of lurking in the background, things are a little bit spooky, and then The Shadow Rising kind of takes a step backwards, because it's like Rand is more like he was in The Great Hunt, I think. It's like the way he was in The Dragon Reborn just sort of didn't happen. And I get it, because like I said, this is where the series got extended the way it did. It makes sense that you wouldn't want to just be like, yeah, Rand's evil now, peace. But yeah, it was a little bit jarring and disappointing, considering that was one of the things that I loved so much in The Dragon Reborn. So, as I said, I have a little summary in front of me just to kind of talk about, and so that we can kind of establish where everyone is at right now. So, at the start of the book, we are left in Tyr, where Rand has just wielded Calendar, the sword that is not a sword, and everything's going on. So we spend quite a bit of time at Tyr, just kind of setting things up. Also, sorry, I sound really stuffy. I'm very sorry. That's why I have my hot drink in front of me, which is a white chocolate mocha, by the way, which is incredible. By the by. Anyway, we kind of set things up in Tyr just before kind of splitting everyone off so they go their separate ways. And like I said, we get these kind of little groups of people doing different things and just splitting off the plot line into little branches, which is very exciting and fun. So, one of these plot lines takes place at the Isle Waste. Rand takes Moiraine, Matt, Egwing, anybody else go to the Isle Waste? I can't remember. And I really enjoyed this plot line because the Isle have been kind of a mysterious people sort of in the background so far, with just like little glimpses here and there, you know, just the idea of Rand being Aiel without knowing, their own prophecy of he who comes with the dawn, and how that plays into Rand and whether that is Rand, whether the Dragon Reborn is the same as He Who Comes with the Dawn, etc, etc. But this time we kind of got to explore the Isle a little bit more, which I really like. I always like, especially in a series this big and this expansive, learning about different people and locations. It's just one of those things that just makes the world feel that little bit more real and a little bit bigger as well, because sort of everyone has such different ways and customs, and it's really fun to learn about those. So, in the Isle Waste, we learn about Roydian. I listened to the audiobook and I'm pretty sure it's Roydian, but someone will likely correct me, so apologies in advance. So Roydian is a city in the Isle Waste. I believe it's kind of a holy sort of city, and they are permitted to enter. And in Roydian, Rand, Mat, and Moraine enter some ter'angreals. Ter'angreals? Words in this book, I swear, will be the death of me. Just apologies in advance for all future pronunciations. And these are an angreal very similar to one that Mat went through earlier on in the book in Tyr. And again, this is something that I quite enjoyed with this book, is a little bit more exploration into the magic and things like angreals and how and what they do, because I find the concept of them kind of interesting because they all do different things and obviously people don't know what everyone does. So it's really interesting when we come across one, it's like, oh, what does this one do? And it's always just quite fun to learn about. So the first time that Mat goes through one, I'm going to have to look for it, because something I've also been doing is putting sticky tabs in my books. These all have a code, there's not too many in here, but purple ones I use to mark things like dreams. So generally Rand dreams, Egwing dreams, stuff like that, will be marked with purple. Green is for Min and her sort of visions of the future, which there are quite a few of in this one, which are very scary, but we'll get on to that. I have thoughts. Orange is sort of prophecies and things like that. So this one, power of the shadow made human flesh, wakened to turmoil, strife and ruin, the reborn one marked and bleeding, dances the sword in dreams and mist, chains the shadow sworn to his will from the city, lost and forsaken, leads the spears to war once more, breaks the spears and makes them see, truth long hidden in the ancient dream. So anything that's remotely like a prophecy, I put a little orange. And then what else we have? Pink is sort of miscellaneous. Things like angreals, stuff like that I'm like, that seems like it would be important later on. I'm keeping a note of, just to keep track of. So, the first time Mat goes into one of these doorway angreal things, it's a little bit weird, but I really enjoyed it. So he sees these people in this angreal, and I'm going to need my glasses because I can't see, sorry. Sorry if my glasses are reflecting. But he sees these people and they tell him, you need to go to Roydian, you need to go to Roydian. And he can ask questions, but he can only ask 3. And Mat is just, we've all established Mat is not my favourite character. He hasn't been this entire time. I still don't really like him. But this moment right here was where he was just like, he really wound me up, because like, it's one of those things where it's so obvious, but it's like, oh, you can only ask 3 questions. It's like a genie and 3 wishes, and somebody says something really stupid and wastes a wish or wastes a question. But he does this like 3 for all 3 questions, and I was like, oh my god, it was so frustrating. So like, his first question is, after they tell him you must go to Roydian, he goes, why should I? And they said, if you do not go to Roydian, you will die. Blah blah blah. Ask, and he says, why will I die if I do not go to Roydian? And he just says, you will have sidestepped the thread of fate, left your fate to drift on the winds of time, and you will be killed by those who do not want that fate fulfilled. Now go, you must go quickly. And he's like, no, blah, blah, blah. And then they tell him a bunch of stuff, which was like, what the hell is this? So he asks what the fate is, and they say, to marry the daughter of the 9 moons, to die and live again, and live once more a part of what was, to give up half the light of the world to save the world. But that was very interesting phrases used there, very interesting things. I don't know, I was like, well, I didn't quite know what to make of any of it, because like I've established, Matt is not my favourite, but it seems like he's going to be very important, which is a shame for me. But I guess that makes room for me to like him more potentially in the future. I don't know. Super interesting. A lot of things happened in a very short space of time. In terms of, I've marked this down with like my like prophecy tab, but you know what I mean, kind of foreshadowing and like sort of, I keep using the word prophecy and I'm gonna keep using it. Yeah, just interesting. It seems like he's gonna be very important. He's gonna have a big role and do a lot of things. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it says to give up half life to the world, to save the world. Go to Rodian, son of battles. Go to Rodian, trickster. Go gambler, go. And then he leaves, and that's that. And it was weird, bizarre. Very, very strange. But anyway, fast forward to Tia, and we come across the same sort of Angrills again, although this time they are slightly different. And this time, when he leaves, he can fully speak the old tongue, which we've had kind of hints to since the last book, pretty much, or even the book before. I can't quite remember, but we've had sort of hints to. Now he can just speak it. He has a lot more memories. It's very interesting. I'm still trying to work out kind of where Matt's character is going to go and what's going to happen with him. I did have kind of a theory towards the beginning of this book where it was kind of a question of, is Rand he who comes with the dawn? And I had kind of a theory. I was like, I reckon I'm right. I think it's actually Matt. If it's actually Matt, I'm going to be mad. But I think Matt is definitely, which obviously then turned out not to be true, because Rand now has more markings. I think he has 2 dragon markings now, which fulfill kind of that prophecy from before, marking him as he who comes with the dawn. But I do think Matt has some kind of bigger role. Don't know, again, I don't quite know what that is yet, but I am interested. Don't necessarily like his character very much, but I am interested to see where he goes, basically. So, in terms of Rand, as I said, he comes out of Rodian with 2 dragon markings, proving that he is, in fact, he who comes with the dawn. In terms of relationship-wise with Rand, obviously we had that kind of prophecy of him and 3 women, and there was always kind of a question mark above who was going to be the 3rd one. I think we can establish now that that will be Aviendha, who I really like. I really liked Aviendha. I thought she was really funny, and yeah, I think she's very different to Elaine and to Min. They're all very different, and I think that's what is going to be quite interesting about that. And yeah, I like all 3 of them, so I'm happy about that. But he's proclaimed as he who comes with the dawn officially by most people now, and he discovers that another one of the Forsaken is knocking about. This one is Asmodean. Again, pronunciation, sorry if I'm wrong. Asmodean is knocking about, and interestingly, Lanfear helps Rand to kind of cut off Asmodean from the Dark One. So Lanfear was really interesting because she's clearly not good, right? Like, we know she's not good, but her motives are very different to any other Forsaken. She's very willing, as long as she gets Rand loose, whatever, as long as she gets him, she doesn't care who she has to step on, who she has to betray. She's very self-motivated and on her own side rather than anyone else's, which is a really interesting stance, because, you know, she helps Rand sometimes, but she's not on Rand's side necessarily. So it's like, it's always interesting to see Lanfear, and again, I'm intrigued to see what happens with her. But she helps him to cut Asmodean off from the Dark One, and what I found really, really funny was this sort of result in Rand getting a little pet forsaken. Because obviously Rand needs somebody to teach him, a man, how to use the One Power. There are no men that can use the One Power. So Lanfear and Rand are like, well, hey, he's kind of powerless now, but what if we don't kill him, but he can teach me how to do this, which I just think is hilarious. I just think that's so funny. So I'm very, very interested to see how that goes going forward. I just thought it was really funny. And then the only other person then really to talk about in the Ideal Waste is Egwing, who, she didn't really stand out too much for me in this book. I really like Egwene. She is one of my favourite characters. But I really liked that we got to see more of the kind of dream walking kind of thing. A little bit more. I like spending time with her, and she has sort of like that unique like magic going on that is a little bit different from everyone else and makes her chapters a bit more interesting. Another big plot line in this book is the Two Rivers. I was very, very, very happy to see the Two Rivers make a return in this book, because I think it's just such a nice location that we got to see like one time at the beginning of the Eye of the World. Haven't been able to go back to since. It's been a little bit questionable about what it would be like when somebody got back there. I did kind of make a prediction earlier on, I think in The Great Hunt, where I speculated that Nynaeve's vision of the Two Rivers when she was getting tested in the White Tower would actually be true, and that the Two Rivers was in trouble. Essentially, yes. So Perrin makes his way back to the Two Rivers. He has Fail with him, and what I really liked was we got to see Tam again, and Tam is obviously Rand's father, and I really liked him in the first book, and I was really glad we got to see him again. I was really glad he wasn't dead. Perrin's family, however, have perished, and I was really, really sad. That really hurt. That hurt a lot. But Perrin is just a trooper. He's great, and I love him. He is one of my favourite characters. Him and Fail, I love a lot. I love their relationship together. And yeah, Perrin's just sweet. I love him. So they're in the Two Rivers fighting off the White Cloaks, but also a Trollocs. It's like a whole thing going on down there. To be honest, not really a lot that important happens there, other than just, getting to see Two Rivers again. The conflict between Perrin especially and the White Cloaks, given the kind of clash there from previous books. And yeah, but the main thing for me, my little romance reading heart, was Perrin and Fail got married, and it was really sweet and really adorable, and I loved it a lot, and I cried a fair couple of times in this book over those two. I love them so much. I just think they're so sweet, and I love their chemistry with each other, and it was just really cute, and I just really want them to be happy. I love them so much. So yeah, that made me really happy. And throughout that as well, in Perrin's wolf dreams, there is a mysterious person called Slayer, who is sort of, the bad guy in the wolf dreams. But how is he in the wolf dreams? And Perrin kills him or attacks him. Turns out then at the same time, this guy, Lord Luke, I believe, in the Two Rivers, who's just kind of a bit of a dick from the get-go. I did not like him at all. He is also injured at the same time. So, is he Slayer? I presume so. That happened. That's pretty much everything that happened in Two Rivers. Just a little bit of a catch-up more than anything. Getting to see how everyone's doing. Further that plot line a little bit more. Third plot line is where we will find Nynaeve and Elaine, who have gone to Tarabon in Tanchico, which is a place name I just love because the chapters just make me laugh. It's like Trouble in Tanchico or something like that, and it's just, I don't know why, it just sounds like a funny like film title or something. But essentially Elaine and Nynaeve are hunting the Black Adger again, as per usual. It's just their little task they've been given, and while they're there they encounter another Forsaken. So we meet another Forsaken in this book. This one is Mogadine. I want to say Mogadine. And I really like the encounter that we got to see between Nynaeve and this Forsaken. Because Nynaeve's strength is something that's always been sort of referred to in terms of her use of the One Power. But obviously she has trouble channeling it as easily as Egwing, for example. You know, she needs to be sort of angry to do so. But this encounter that she has with Mogadine kind of shows how strong she is, because during the fight it was this really cool moment where they're kind of fighting against each other and Mogadine is kind of trying to seem casual when in actual fact Nynaeve realizes she's actually just matched the strength of this Forsaken. And like, I don't know, it was just one of those moments where you realize, crap, she's strong. Like, if she can sort of embrace this a bit more and learn to not need to be so angry all the time, she'll be unstoppable. And I just think that's really cool and really exciting for the future, in terms of her character, because like I said, it's constantly referred to how strong she is. Egwing too, but Nynaeve in particular has been referred to many times. And that was a really cool moment where you were like, damn, she is strong. Mogadine escapes at the end and she does not get her death in this part. So that's left a little bit open, and I'd like to see maybe another encounter between those two later on, because obviously now Mogadine knows to expect strength from Nynaeve, but Nynaeve now also knows that she has that strength, and yeah, that's going to be very exciting if we get to see that face off again. I'd love to see that. We also get a little bit of a callback to the Great Hunt in terms of the Damane and their collars, which were horrible and scary, because Nynaeve discovers a male version, which, scary, Rand, be careful, sweetie. So that's really interesting that got brought back in a different way. Just, there's a lot of exciting things going on. I do see why people like this one so much. It does set up a lot, and it has a lot of things that you're like, ooh, this would be interesting. Ooh, I'm excited to see where this goes. So it's not necessarily even that you get a lot of those moments in terms of payoff in this one, but I feel like it probably sets a really, really good foundation for payoff in the future. So I do see why people like it. So then the final sort of location we get quite a bit of in this book is the White Tower itself, where we spend quite a lot of time with Min. Now, Min is one of my favourite characters. I know I've said that about a lot of people, but I really love Min because she offers something very different, and her sort of ability to see the future, or people's futures specifically, is so much fun. And it's her chapters that I end up tabbing quite a lot, because she'll just look at someone and she'll see something, and I just love it. But oh my god, it had me so on edge in this one. So I know there's something that I've seen a lot of people say is, I think Gawain and Galad are quite disliked sort of in the fan base. I have no reason to dislike them at this point. I don't really have much. Like, I really liked Gawain in the first book. To be honest, they're all starting to roll into one already, so I can't really tell, but kind of when we first get to know him, I actually really like him. I have no issues with him whatsoever. But in, like, the first chapter, Min is just like talking to him, and she sees, where is it? For an instant, his face was that bloody mask again. More, a sword floated above his head and a banner waved behind it. The long-hilted sword, like those most warders used, had a heron engraved in a slightly curved blade, symbol of a blade master, and Min could not say whether it belonged to Gawain or threatened him. The banner bore Gawain's sign of the charging white boar, but on a field of green rather than the red of Andor. Both sword and banner faded with the blood. It's like, that was already a little bit of sketch, right? Like, a little bit weird. And then later on in the book, we get another one, which was 10 times scarier. Did not like it one bit, I gotta be honest with you. So this is on page 777, and this is like way later on in the book. And she looks at him, and where's my glasses again? For a moment, she let herself think of the images she had glimpsed, just for a moment, flickering around Gawain's head. Gawain kneeling at Egwing's feet with his head bowed, and Gawain breaking Egwing's neck. First one, then the other, as if either could be the future. Ooh, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's like, okay, so he can either, like, worship Egwing or break her neck. Which will it be? Who knows? It's a 50-50 chance. Horrifying. I'm so scared. Like, what the hell? Like I said, I've had no real reason to dislike him. I'm not saying he's my favourite character, but I've got no real reason to dislike him. But then you're going to hit me with that? Stress. Stress, pain, anxiety, all of it. I don't like it. Yeah. So, that's where I'm at with Gawain right now. Absolutely horrifying, but back to Min. I'm just gonna breeze past that because I don't want to linger on it for too long because it makes my head spin. As I said, she's in the White Tower, and she also sees a lot of visions and things that kind of prophesize the downfall of the White Tower. She sees a lot of dead people. Like, she's looking at all these, like, Aes Sedai, and she's like, they're gonna die, oh, you're dead, yeah, like, yeah. And she looks at Siuan, and she sees her lying on the floor naked. There was something odd with the image, but it vanished before Min could say what. Very weird stuff, didn't like it. But essentially, lovely Eleda, comes along and deposes Siuan as the Amelin seat, and Min, Siuan, Leanne escape. Min basically tries to get Gawain to help them escape, and he's like, no, because, you know, she won't tell me where Elaine is or what's going on with Elaine, blah blah blah. But he does eventually help them, and they escape. And they take Logain with them, which I didn't see coming. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen with Logain, and I was quite confused to begin with when, you know, obviously the show comes out this Friday. It comes out in like 3 days from when I'm filming this, and I'm really excited. And when I saw they'd cast someone as Logain, and from my understanding, you know, he's not a new actor. I don't know anything he's been in, but I think he was in Money Heist on Netflix, I believe. I think he's like, you know, an established actor, and I was confused because I was like, surely Logain is not that big of a role, because, you know, we hear about him, we see him a couple of times, but that was about it. But clearly he's going to have a bigger role now going forward, and I'm really intrigued to see where that goes, because obviously now he's been gentled, he can't use the one power anymore. But what else can he do? I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. And that's essentially where I'm at now with this. It was a really fun time. I did really enjoy it. I understand why people like it so much. It's not my favourite, but I do really like it. It like might be like number 3, maybe, for me. But, you know, I'm only 4 books in. But now, because I've done this, I can start book 5, and I'm really, really excited. So I hope you enjoyed this. It was a bit more long and rambly than I anticipated, but alas, there's no change there. That's just generally how these things go for me. Please, as always, talk to me about this, send me messages, write in my comments, tweet me, whatever. I'd be interested to see your thoughts. And again, my main question is if this is your favourite, please just tell me why, because I'm just very intrigued to see where that massive sort of boom of this one is the best comes from. And if I am correct in saying that it's mainly for how it opens things up a little bit more. But yes, that's the end. I promise I'll shut up now. As always, most of my thoughts I talk about on Twitter or on Goodreads, where you'll find more up-to-date things, because as we've established, doing all this generally takes a while for me to get around to these days. But, you know, I'm open to talk about this all the time. I will leave now. I've talked too much, my voice is going, I need to shut up. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope to see you again next time for the next one, and we can talk about the show as well. So, I'm very excited. So, yeah, bye!